right, so let's get into it.
Okay,
No, you're good, Hunter.
I got one.
So real quick, my name's Clint Barnett. I'll be the host for tonight for our CPC exam workshop. Real quick, just a little background before we get into everything. What is the CPC exam if you're not aware? So the CPC exam is essentially a comprehensive exam that you will take while you're in practicum that will cover pretty much all the coursework that you had up until that point. Um, it is a pretty difficult exam. It is not an easy exam. It's very anxiety provoking, as some of you probably heard Hunter and Christian talking about before we started. So that's really the reason behind doing this workshop, is just so people can get some general, some study tips, or just really just get an idea of what to expect for the exam. We also, since practicum is at the same time, we're also going to ask some or add some practicum questions as well, just so some people can get an idea of what practicum will be like, and they can ask some questions related to practicum as well. Um, quick little outline structure for tonight. I've prepared some general questions related to the CPC exam and the practicum as well. So I'll go ahead and go through the questions that I have, and then after that, we'll go ahead and just open it up to everyone. So if you have any question, concern, or anything at all, we'll go. I think the most efficient way to do it on Teams, if you can just use your raise the hand feature, and then I'll go ahead and call on you, and then you can ask your question. That way we don't have people like everyone like trying to talk at once. That's probably like the most efficient way to go about it. And I think that's everything I have to start off. So let's go ahead and start with some of the CPC exam questions that I have. First one, so what study materials were helpful for the exam? Oh, my fault. One more thing before we open up. I forgot one thing. My apologies. Our panelists for tonight, I forgot to introduce you guys. We have Brian Higachi, Christian Gamble, and Hunter Garby. If you guys can wave at the camera, or Hunter, if you can say hi real quick.
Hello.
Thank you. Sorry, I did not introduce you guys. My fault. These are our panelists. Thank you guys again for taking some time out of your busy schedules to help out with this. Really appreciate it. Sorry, forgot to introduce you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, of course. So now back to the question. Sorry. What study materials did you guys find that were helpful for studying for the exam? And you guys, I mean, to make it easy, we can probably just go Hunter, Christian, Brian to answer all of them, like in order, if that makes it easier.
Hunter, Christian, Brian. Okay.
Yeah.
So that means me. So the majority of the exam, like, I would say has nothing to do with the DSM. So just a heads up on that. So for me, studying wise, I know Brian had a YouTube video that he found of I don't know if he's a professor or just like a doctor of some sort, and he had a YouTube video of like a comprehensive exam review, and it was like 40 something minutes, and I listened to that literally the day of the exam, and some of the questions on the exam were what was talked about in the YouTube video, so that was extremely helpful. I can find the link to that and then probably send it, or when we put it on YouTube, I'll put it in the description of the video. I mean, I looked up some free websites online. We would literally be sitting in prac and we would all be studying together. We would be studying like NCE test questions, which is the licensure exam, and then we would be studying like free CPCE test, like practice tests, and like looking at those. I would say some of those were kind of helpful, but like once you get into the exam, like we can get into what is on the exam, like in terms of topics that you'll need to know, but those kind of helped, but really the YouTube video is what helped me. But yeah.
For me, it was okay. So I used a website called study.com, and I chose. So it's a subscription service, so it's not free, unfortunately. But I used them, and they basically have lessons that range anywhere from like 2 to 12 minutes each, and it does a comprehensive review of basically everything you learned up to prac. and I'll say the only reason I decided to use them was just because they have a high percentage of like pass ratings after using them. So I will say that they certainly helped me a little bit, um, possibly even more than study.com is taking practice tests. I took a good number of those just on my own time and also while at the clinic. Um, but I will say the major downside to doing practice tests that I found was some of the tests you can only take once before like you start getting before it's the same test again. And obviously I don't know how helpful that is, but um, it's not like the questions change every time. So that was kind of the downside to taking practice tests for me. And then I'll second what Hunter said. I also used the link that I think she just sent in the chat. Um, I listened to that the 40 minutes before I took my test. And there were a number of questions on the exam that I only knew the correct answer to because I watched that video. Um, so it is extremely helpful. And I feel like it's short enough that like you could watch it multiple times in days leading up to the exam. Um, but yeah, practice test that and that video is what I would say.
So what I did is I started out by taking the practice test just to kind of see, how I did initially, show me what topics I was comfortable with and other topics I needed help with. And what I did from there is because I'm that type of learner that needs to write things out, I took each question from the practice test and I wrote the main point of the question and I wrote out what the answer was and what made that answer relevant to that topic. But I also wrote out the details about what the other answers were to that question. And that was helpful in understanding those points on their own and how they were distinct and how they were kind of related to the topic, and also how they didn't relate. So if you had a question on a specific theory and it asked you about the questions, A, B, C, and D were different theorists, I wrote about, the correct answer, who the theorist was, and some main points about them, but I wrote about the other theorists that didn't relate to it and some distinct things about them. And you can see how that can kind of web out into writing other details that describes, certain theorists, their theories, interventions related to those theories, models, processes, stages, and phases. And with over like 200 questions on one of the NCEA practice tests, it kind of took some time, but that's why they say start early, and during practicum you have some block hours where if you don't have a client or anything, you do have some time where you can study. And what I did is I went into my session room because it was nice and quiet, and I just studied there. So it was a nice little quiet time where I could just study as I needed to, and then prepare for my client if I needed as well. So that's just how I studied from there. And if there were questions I didn't know in the end, I would look back at my notes, or Google's a great friend. You do what you can to learn um, the what these practice test items are and everything. And the video that Hunter's talking about, it's just a 47-minute review. This John, he wrote the Purple Encyclopedia book that everyone's going to hear about at some point. Um, Dr. Rosenthal. And what's funny about the video is it shows a picture of a cassette tape because the review is from a cassette tape from 2002. And as antiquated as it is, theories really haven't changed in the last 20 years since 2002. They're all, Freud is still the same, Adler, all of that. So all the information there is still pertinent. And he does discuss, the age of being 2002. But so much of the topics are just so relevant. So what I did is I would plug them into my headphones and I would just go for a walk around town, just listen to it. So I did that about like 2 or 3 times. I also did it one last time before I took the test as well. So that was kind of a really good process of what I did to prepare for the test.
I also want to shout out Brian because I got to give credit where credit is due. As far as I'm aware, Hunter and I only had the link because Brian shared it with us.
Yes, this is correct.
And Brian did super well on the exam. So thank you again, Brian, for sharing that with us.
Yes.
Sure.
Thank you.
Would that be a link that could be you could upload to YouTube as well, Hunter?
Yeah, I can put it in the description. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah. Cool. So now moving on, next question I have now is what were the main topics that the exam covered?
Oh, okay. So, listen closely, everyone. There is like no questions about the DSM. There are no questions on like practical use of counseling and like practical use of theories. Okay? There's one DSM question, so I would know the clusters of personality disorders. Just know that. But the exam is split into two halves, and for me, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Christian and Brian, for me, the first half of the exam was all about research, program evaluation, career counseling, and like I'm missing one. Tests and appraisals was my first half. My second half of the exam was that one DSM question, mainly group counseling, a little bit more about career counseling theories and like the theorists surrounding career counseling, um, counseling theories in general, somewhat, but it was mainly group research, program evaluation, and career counseling. So I would really, really focus your studying on those. And for me, I took those classes my first semester of the program, and I'm gonna be so for real with y'all. I completely forgot a lot of the theorists that developed the career counseling theories. So that I would study very hard on, and same with the research stuff. There was stuff from my undergrad on that exam, and I was like, oh wow, okay, like your qualitative methods class. So yeah, I don't think I'm missing any that were on my exam, but yeah, that's what I would study, and that's what is on there.
Okay. So Hunter was talking about like the split of the exam, and that's true. The exam is split into two parts. However, I think the order that she got her questions in and the order that I got mine in were different. So it's not always gonna be like the first half is these topics and the second half is the other set of topics.
Mhm.
So just throwing that out there. For me, I noted. Okay, you guys have been told maybe that it covers like 8 different topics. I think. Have you guys heard that?
I've
I
heard
can't
some
remember.
similar, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is a load of crap. Like that is so wrong. It is. It's nowhere near 8. It's 4, maybe 5, and the ones Hunter hit them pretty good, but there's a lot of career on there. So no career. There's a lot of group. I don't know if you guys have taken group yet, but there's a lot of group stuff. There is a lot of tests and appraisals. So like statistics stuff, Z codes, T codes, c- correlation coefficients, stuff like that. And then multicultural. I got a good amount of multicultural as well. And then Hunter was mentioning like career theorists, and what I'll say about that is theories was incorporated into those 4 topics. So like theories wasn't its own separate section, but it was like what are the theorists about multicultural, or what are the theorists about group? You know, like theories is incorporated into the other sections or categories. So
Okay. I would say about the topics, one thing that Dr. Schwartz said is that we're graded off of 136 questions. There's 160 questions overall that you're given. So they'll had a lot of questions one direction over the other. So it does seem like there's a hell of a lot of questions. You're like, man, what is this? But those are just kind of field questions that won't pertain to you. So that's kind of good news there. Um, but yeah, the first half, you always feel like, oh my God, there's a hell of a lot of multicultural questions. I have to think back, like a couple of years here and think like, what did I learn? Oh, I can't remember. But as long as you kind of paid attention in the multicultural class, and we've also touched on in each class we do talk about cultural competence. So there is that aspect too, and just knowing a little bit more about different ethnicities, um, and certain things too. They do ask about Asian Americans. They do ask about Native American culture. Um, just kind of certain little things that may be helpful in counseling certain groups. Um, but I think really it's difficult to say study everything you've learned in this program. It's like as long as you're very comfortable with like a generalized overview. If like in career counseling you can identify that David Super had like this career rainbow and major life stages, life roles and everything. You don't have to remember everything about like what stage crystallization happened, what stage stabilization happened, or specification. As long as you're comfortable understanding that these stages existed under super, and that major life roles consist in this part of development. Um, that will just kind of help you with that foundation, and you'll be a little more comfortable when that question does come up, because in a way that'll, with it being a multiple choice, that's really going to help you with the process of elimination instead of having to know the exact theory, theorist, and definitions. If you just have like a good basic foundational understanding of it, and you come across a question you don't know, you can just kind of eliminate some of the answers because it's like, well, that's not going to work. That doesn't make sense. This theorist I know didn't deal with this problem. So, you just kind of work out the answer in your head that way. That helps me at least.
I did want to add one thing. At least for my comp exam, there wasn't anything about treatment, and there wasn't anything about like specific techniques. At least for me. So I don't know, because when I was not in prac and was about to go take the comp exam, I was more or less expecting the comp to be like practical use of treatment and like what theories I should use and like DSM and like those case studies. Like I thought like case studies and case vignettes would come up a lot, but it was just not that. So there were theories on there, but they were mainly related to career. So, but yeah, what both Christian and Brian said.
I can actually tell you what the content areas are, because I do have my little thing right here. So you're given professional counseling, orientation, and ethical practice, social and cultural diversity, human growth and development, career development, counseling and helping relationships. I don't really know what that is. Group counseling, assessment and testing, and research and program evaluation. So those are the 8 sections that they do have tests on here. So like I said, the other extra questions are probably just test questions that they're just trying to feel out. So if that's helpful to you guys as well.
Yeah, they did have a family theory question on there, and I was like, I'm not an MFT, I don't know this. So I'm hoping they don't count that question in the grading process. So yeah, a lot of the practice exams you guys will take too have a lot of family theory and like systems stuff. So yeah, that was completely new to me this semester because I'm not an MFT. I'm an individual counselor. So yeah.
All right. So next I have just, what else would you have liked to have known about the CPC exam now after having taken it?
Oh my god. I wish I would have known how stressful logging into the exam was gonna be ahead of time. the way that I logged in, so I took my exam at 7:30 at night to 11 p.m., okay? First of all, don't recommend taking the exam that late. I'm just going to be honest. I was hungry. I was exhausted from like the entire day. Just don't take it that late if you can help yourself. But yeah, logging in, like, I don't know if that's one of your main questions, Clint, but I can go more into that. But yeah,
Now go ahead. Go ahead.
but yeah, logging in, make sure you have good internet, make sure you have like a clear space, because when you log in, they'll ask you to have your phone with you and like take pictures of your area, and then you will go into a call with your proctor. And I feel really bad. Like I couldn't really hear mine or understand mine very well, so there was a lot of like repetitive like questions, like, can you show me this area of your desk? Can you show me this area of your room? Like, where did you put this? Like, I had a pair of scissors on my desk, and he goes, "Can you move those?" Because he thought I could cheat with my scissors or something. I don't know. So I had like move a bunch of stuff, and then you basically like once you're good, you're clear to go. That they basically just go, "Okay, good luck." And then the exam starts. So I just want you all to be aware of that the logging in process in itself can be a little hectic and a little stressful. Don't let that get to your head. Just remind yourself, like, okay, like this is for the exam, like just take a deep breath. They're just making sure that I'm not cheating, they're not accusing me of anything, things like that. Because I know a lot of people, like, including myself, like, it was a hectic process trying to log in. So I wish I knew that. Um, and again, like I said before, I wish I would have known that the NCE practice tests, like, weren't really what was going to be on the CPCE, if that makes sense. So, like, there wasn't going to be a lot of practical use of counseling theories, and there wasn't any techniques or anything like that going into it. So I was very surprised to go into the exam just seeing basically all career, when that's one class and I don't remember learning any of the stuff that was on the exam. So yeah, I wish I would have known more about career stuff, and I wish I would have known that there was a lot of research on there, because career and research were my weak points in this program. So I don't know. I just wish I would have known more about that going into it. But yeah, I could probably keep talking, but I'm not going to. So yeah.
For me, so I took the exam at 8 a.m. The exam it takes you about 2.5 hours to do. And you do get a 15-minute break in the middle of it. So you can get up, use the bathroom, stretch. So I didn't know about that. Because I was pretty concerned about, like, not being able to get up during the test. Like that, I don't know. Because, like, it's a long test. And I try to take my time. So I was kind of concerned about that. So you do get a break where you can do that. But like I said, I took the exam at 8 a.m. So I thought that was really good. Obviously, Hunter didn't have the greatest experience taking it late at night. I'm not sure when Brian took his, but I liked taking it in the morning. And the thing that I wish I would have known is more of the exact areas to study, because I felt like I spread my studying so thin across a bunch of different areas, all of the different classes that we have to take, when in reality, like, had I known to focus my time and energy into a couple of the more precise areas, I feel like I would have felt way more prepared taking the exam.
Mhm.
Um, and I probably would feel better now that I have taken it. Um, so yeah, I just wish I would have known more precisely where to study, or to where to put my time and energy.
Mhm.
Oh, Brian, you muted.
You're muted, Brian.
You muted.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you very much. I'd say, like, when you are first registering to take the exam, that's when you kind of learn a little bit more about what it might be like to take the exam. Because you learn just in that process of registering, you learn you have to be proactive and patient just to register for your candidate ID. And then you have to register again for the exam. So it feels like it's going to be a one and done thing. I don't know if everyone's registered for their exam, but you're not completely registered for your exam until you've chosen a date, a time, you've paid your fee, and then you receive an email confirming everything. Because at that time, they have you test your internet connection, they have you test what it might be like. You're going to have to close out all your tabs and everything. So they take you through a semi process of what it's going to be like on the day of the test. So when I took the test at 1 p.m. So that way I could have, a relaxing morning. I could do stuff around my house. I could clean my desk off of nothing because I've heard the horror stories where one gal, she had to grab a mirror so the proctors could look underneath her desk. And other people, they had to I had to grab my computer to show a person around. So I just cleared everything off my desk. It was a nice calming process to clean everything up anyway. And if you just have nothing around the area, it doesn't give the proctors anything to question or have you do anything extra. If you just have like a clean desk, nothing below your desk, it's just that way, someone's not telling you, well, you need to get rid of this, you need that. It's not adding more stress. It's what you just don't need on a big test day like that. And so that was just kind of helpful for me. I also did a last minute super review. With a YouTube video, kind of walking around and cleaning, because it was nicer to kind of approach the test with a little more calm state, it's because I didn't want to go in there thinking, am I prepared, or I hope I pass, or what if I fail? Because it was easier being in a calmer position to not be overwhelmed. So when I did come across a question that was like, this is brand new information to me, I could approach it, rationalize the best answers, and just feel a little bit more confident, and not be like so hurried because of what a proctor made me to clean up my whole desk or I wasn't doing something correct. As long as you give yourself enough time, because I think you're allowed to log in 30 minutes before your test. Yes, 30 minutes before your test. And so that gives you time to just work with the proctor. Um, there's like a whole setup that you have to go through. But also, if you do log in, like right at test time, and you do have to go through the proctor, you're not deducted anything. You aren't going to miss out if you don't start right at the time you signed up for. They do let you know that you are be given this grace time to work out the sign-in process with the proctor and everything else, and then your test will begin. So don't freak out that my test is at 1:15 and you just signed in at 1:10 and the proctor hasn't signed on yet to check in with you. So just let you know that they still let you know, like, you'll still be able to take your test. Don't freak out if it's past the time you signed up for. Yeah, I hope that answered.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. That all was very helpful. Real quick, just with the questions, so you are timed, correct? Oh, I'm sorry.
Hold up, Stephanie.
Yeah, I know. I saw it. Stephanie. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, this might be like a silly question, but did you all take your exams like in your own home?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, no, that is a good question.
So, can I ask like advice, because like I don't have a desk in my house. I have 3 kids and we don't have like the largest house ever. So like I literally just sitting here thinking like just brainstorming where I could take it. I thought about even like a conference room, because I work in a school, so like even like a conference room like at like the school, like even if I did like a professional day from work or something of the sort, and like but was still, do you think that would be like an okay, like just like recommendation as like thought process of where you're at, like if that would be okay in like a stress situation? Or
so the biggest thing is just as like long as it's going to be quiet, like you're not going to be bothered. So like if you have a conference room at work, like if no one's going to be in there and the desk is going to be clear and you feel like you can really sit down and focus for 2.5 hours, yeah, that's gonna be just fine. And you need to make sure that they have a strong enough Wi-Fi connection to be able to run the test. So
Okay.
once you think you know where you're gonna take it, I suggest taking your computer to that place and running like the system check,
Okay.
because they provide you with a system check before you take it. So I just would suggest bring your laptop or your computer, whatever, to the location, run the system check to make sure that it'll run smoothly, and you'll be good.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I'll add to that. Make sure that you have easy access to your webcam, so that way they can look around the area. One person, she took her test where she had 2 monitors, and they made sure that the other monitor was unplugged. She actually
Okay.
just show them that. So if you can be like in an area away from other computers, you said
Okay.
there's like a conference room or something. That way they can see there's no other information that you can access um, or getting information from real quick. So, yeah, I think that'll help you. Yeah.
Okay. And then I even thought about, but I even thought about like getting like even like a conference room in like the library or something where I could like basically like book like a room like in the library where it would be like where there's no other computers or anything like that and it's just like a blank room essentially.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
as long as you have good like connection and
Okay.
if you can book it for more than an hour, because are you talking about like the library at the school or
No, I actually live in Canton, so
oh,
it would
gotcha.
be like Stark County.
Oh, gotcha. I thought you meant the university. But yeah, no, I think as long as you're able to book the room for more than an hour and it's in a place that you won't be distracted, and has good internet connection, yeah, you should be fine. But yeah,
Okay.
I was one of
Thank
the
you so
people.
much.
Yeah, no problem. I was one of the people with 2 monitors and had to show the person the cord and everything else. So yeah, fun times.
All right, awesome.
Mike.
Stephanie, did you have anything else?
Oh,
Mike had
No?
his
All
hand
right.
up.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was
I
gonna
was gonna
say,
get to Mike.
don't trust Akron's library. The Wi-Fi is like it's decent, but not for video. So like I've had Teams meetings and it came in and out. So I don't know. Your local library is probably much better.
Cool.
thanks, Mike.
Yep, thank you. Awesome. So yeah, the last thing I just had real quick that I was thinking of while y'all were talking was just, so how much time, it is timed, correct? Like, how does that part of the exam work?
Yeah, it's timed. So when you schedule your exam, I think I'm remembering this correctly. When you schedule your exam, it'll tell you like the time frame that you have. Like mine was from 7:30 p.m. to 11 p.m. or like 10:30 p.m. or something. So they give you like 3.5 hours like of a time slot, but I don't know anybody that has taken the full time. I literally finished my exam in like an hour and a half, like maybe an hour. Yeah, I'm a fast test taker. I saw your face, Christian. I'm a fast test taker. So, I also didn't take the 15-minute break. I saw it pop up and I went, I want to get this exam over with. I'm done. I want to go to bed. So I finished the exam like straight through. But yeah, no, it is timed. So, yeah.
Wait, do you know like exactly what that number is in terms of how long?
I think it's just until the end of your scheduled time,
Oh,
right?
okay.
I think so. I think once you start the exam, oh god, I think it's 4 hours. I think you have 4 hours.
Yeah,
To go.
4 hours.
it's
It
a
could be
long
3.5
time.
though. It could be
Okay.
3.5.
Yeah, it's a long time. I can't remember exactly what the number is though. And I think it's just because I took my exam so fast that I wasn't paying attention. But yeah.
Okay.
I don't know anybody that's even come close to running out of time.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel
Clint, I'll add something to that. So when you take the test, there's no time limit to get to the halfway mark because since there's 160 questions, the first 80 questions is what you have to answer to get to your first break. And you're allowed to flag questions and you're allowed to come back to questions that you just aren't sure about. And so after those 80 questions are up, it'll ask you if you want to go back to revisit those flagged questions, questions you're unsure about. And it won't take you to the break until you have clicked off all of your flags, until you are absolutely certain. And it will remind you as soon as you try to go on, like, are you sure you want to go on? You're like, yes. Like, and they'll probably bring up another question. Are you sure you're sure? You're like, Jesus Christ, yes. So they do that for the first 80 questions. And then it gives you the 15-minute break, and then does the exact same thing for the last 80 questions. You get to flag your questions, you get to go back to them. And I think you get to go backwards during the actual test.
Yes.
So if question comes up later, you can go back to the question and be like, I know the answer to that. I'm going to go right back to it. So there's lots of opportunities for you to just take your time. Like I took my time, took my sweet time. It did take me 2.5 hours. So that was me like scrutinizing so many, and I flagged a lot of questions too, because I'm like, could be this, could be that. And so when we say 2.5 hours, it seems like, oh my goodness, but that really is giving you a healthy amount of time to really just examine everything and really give yourself like the process of eliminating to give you the best answer for you.
Brian brings up a really good point too that I just want to touch on really fast. Is once you guys submit your first 80, you can go back and so you can go back within the first 80, but once you submit it and move on to your next 80, you cannot go back to your first 80. So you have to make sure that your first 80 is done before you move on, because you can't go back to it.
Yes.
Good point.
Cool.
That's all. I'm done.
All right, Awana.
Just a quick question. Are there any essay questions or written response?
No, thank God.
Thank God.
It's all
no
multiple
essay
choice.
and no you don't have to do any mathematical equations.
Nope.
You don't have to do any conversions.
Nope.
You don't have to know how to convert a z-score to a t-score.
Thank God.
You don't have to know that.
Yeah, no, it's all multiple choice. The only thing that maybe you is mean and standard deviation or median, but that's pretty easy in my opinion. But yeah.
Brian's right. You don't have to know, you don't have to do any calculations. You don't have to know how to calculate Z or T scores, but you do have to know what they are and when they are best used.
Yes.
So.
Yes. Know your standard deviations, the mean score and standard deviations for some tests, like some intelligence tests.
Mm-hmm.
They will ask you about, unless I'm thinking of the practice test, I don't think so. I think they do ask you about the mean score and standard deviation for some of the well-known intelligence tests. It's not good. You don't have to memorize everything. It's good. Whatever we studied in class, those were the notes I used, and those were what I recall being on the test. So that was helpful for me.
Yeah, you're right, Brian. There was one question about knowing the mean and standard deviation of one intelligence test, or maybe two intelligence tests. I can't remember, but it was on there.
I think the Wechsler test.
That's what I think.
That was on there
a
couple times.
Yeah.
Just know a little about that.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, in terms of the CPC exam, these I've already asked all of the questions I had written down. So now I'll just open it up to everyone else. Or if as panelists you guys are thinking of anything else to add, that would be helpful. But yeah, at this point, just open it up to everyone.
I want to say something really quick. Just super quick as a panelist. We are all kind of making it sound like the worst thing ever, scariest experience ever in your entire life. It's never going to be worse. But I promise you guys, this exam, I told my parents this after I finished the exam. The exam is designed to humble you. It's not designed for you to get a 100% on it, okay? The passing grade is literally a 51% this semester. So don't go into it thinking oh my God, I feel like I got all of them wrong, blah 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 blah, I'm gonna fail, because the passing score is so low anyway, and they're only scoring 136 like out of the 160 that you're taking. So just, we are making it sound like a big scary exam, because it is. It is hard, but it's not the end of the world if you fail. Like, you at least you'll know, like, if you like how to study for next time, the structure of the exam, like things like that. So yeah, just don't go into it thinking like, if I don't get a 90, I'm gonna fail. Okay, like it's a 50% probably that you're gonna need to pass. So don't freak out.
Keep in mind that Hunter's exactly right. Keep in mind that the test is designed for you guys to get a D on. Like, it's just built that way. And so don't go in expecting or trying to get 100 or a 90 or whatever. Just do your best. You guys literally just have to be average. Like, you literally have to be normal with the rest of the nation. So just do your best, and you guys will be fine.
Yes.
Yeah, what I'll add to that is of the 160 questions for us, our passing, you had to get 71 correct. So that means you can possibly get 89 questions wrong, if that is all helpful. You can get so much more wrong than you got right, and you'll still pass in this. But also know this, that our program also gives you room that if you don't pass, that you're allowed the second test. It's not the end of the world, because we've known people that have failed, and sometimes just extraneous circumstances arise. They just weren't in the right headspace. Just things just happen. And so if you do fail, the program just say, okay, let's get you signed up for another test. So when we say, like, we give you room to, like, get this many wrong, this many right, that if someone does fail, you're not going to be alone in that. People do fail, and people do take it again. So don't let that get to you. So it's just, we're just providing as much information as we can that we never got. So hopefully you guys can take some of this information and just be like, okay, well, I'm not going to do what that person said. I'm going to go this way. So just take a little bit of information and see what's helpful for you.
Yeah, because from what I understand, you get 3 attempts
Yeah.
to pass the
You can have
exam.
up to 3 attempts.
I think
Yeah.
I think the third attempt you can write a paper. I think is the third attempt. Like, and I don't think I know of anybody that's done that, but apparently it's like a really extensive like essay that you write for your third attempt if you end up failing twice. But usually if you do fail the first time, which is not very common, you're not going to fail the second time usually. So yeah. I don't know.
Awesome.
Brian is the only one of the panelists that got his score back, so me and Christian are just waiting until next week, potentially the week after, for our scores. So wish us luck. It's fine.
Like I said, I'm sure you guys will do great. As I said before we started. But yeah. So yeah, anybody else? Any other questions regarding the CPC exam at all? Anything else?
In general.
Holland?
Yeah, I just want to know if you guys found the Encyclopedia of Counseling, like the purple book, if you found that helpful at all.
I did not use it because it's expensive. But the guy that made that video, like Brian said, was the one that I think he made the purple book. So that's a free video on YouTube, and it literally had, like, in the video itself, like, talked about exact answers that are on the comp exam, like the multicultural stuff that Brian was mentioning with the, there was a question about Native Americans and a question about Asian Americans. I think one about Mexican Americans also. Those were answered for me because of that YouTube video. So I tried to find things that were free. But yeah, I heard, like, the app for the purple book is helpful. But yeah, I didn't use it personally, unfortunately.
Okay.
I didn't use the purple book either. Mainly just for the reason that I don't learn that way. I know that if I could read that entire thing cover to cover, and I'm not going to retain 5% of that. Like, so I just didn't bother going that route. I know it's helpful for some people, but that's just not my learning style. So I didn't use it.
Yeah, I'll also say that I didn't. But there were plenty of people during Practicum that they had that book out, and they were religious with that. They were just like getting a lot of good information out of it. So, you ironically have found 3 people that didn't use the purple book, but there are other people that they had it with them. They were studying with it. They were making note cards from it, and so we did find many people that found that purple book very useful. So if it's useful for you, awesome. I say continue with it.
All right, thank you. And I just have one more question. At what point did you guys start studying? I take practicum in the fall. So I just want to know like when you guys started studying, because I'm a procrastinator and I don't want to do that for this. So
Me too, sis. Yeah, I wish I started studying earlier. I think we all started studying together at least, like maybe like 2 or 3 weeks before the exam. And I know for me, I wish I would have studied like the beginning of practicum, maybe even sooner, because there's a lot of information, and now that I've taken it once, like I know what's on it. So if I do end up failing and taking it again, I'm probably going to be studying all summer. But yeah, for you, since you're taking prac in the fall, so you'd probably take the exam halfway through fall in like what, October, September?
yeah, I think.
I mean, personally, like for me, I don't know, it's up to you. I would probably start studying like at the beginning of the semester, if not like maybe a week before. Um, and like obviously like that YouTube video, like take a listen to that. I am a huge advocate for that YouTube video, so I will forever praise Brian for that. So yeah, that was extremely helpful. And yeah, so you just don't want to burn yourself out. That's the only thing I'm worried about, is like you don't want to burn yourself out. So, information overload.
So Hunter said that she started like 3 or 4 weeks before. I gave myself a month and a half. I thought maybe that I should have started earlier, but honestly, I paced myself, and I actually was able to like stop studying like 2 or 3 days beforehand, just to give my brain a break so that I didn't like overload myself. Like I've been studying for a month and a half. The last 2 days I can give my brain a rest. So yeah, I thought it was adequate. So
I am also quite the procrastinator, so don't beat yourself up over that. Because I remember, so I took my test February 28th. I remember starting, I think it was around when the Super Bowl, whenever that was.
Like mid-February.
Yeah, beginning of February. And so that was my timeline. And so I was studying over the weekends. I was studying a lot during practicum. Like I said early on, you don't have many clients, so you have lots of empty block hours. And so that's when I went into my session room that I was assigned to, and it's a nice quiet space. I put in my headphones, listened to some brown noise, and I just studied away. Because that's just a nice quiet place. The computer lab that you're in gets a little hectic and loud, especially the first week or two, because you're all like, oh my God. So give yourself a quiet space to kind of just study at your own pace. And that's just extra time that you can actually study. So yeah, that's how much time I gave myself. So.
All right, thank you guys.
Of course.
All right, Stephanie. You can go ahead.
So I guess my question is, what did you find like the best study habit? Because I am not a person who can sit down and just read and read and read. Like that is just, I don't retain anything by doing that. So, what is like the best way to be reviewing or to be retaining? Because I zone out. Like I'll have to reread something like 4 times and be like, crap, what did that just say?
Yeah.
Like what's the best way to kind of go over all that information without having to sit and just read it? I know it sounds silly, but
No, it's not silly because I am the exact same way. I mean, me, the ADHD queen. So like, I just studied. I'm gonna be so for real. I don't think I studied one time outside of practicum. I think, yeah, Christian. I know, but yeah, I think I mainly just studied in the group. Like we would all be in the computer lab, like doing practice tests together. I would be doing some on my own, and I think that was the best way for me to retain because it's not like sitting there reading chapters, reading a book, like things like that. It was a lot of listening to the YouTube video. It was a lot of doing practice exams that I found online. It was a lot of testing each other. Like I know Dr. Schwartz sent out an email with an NCE practice test, which is kind of similar to the CPCE, but we would test each other. We would read the questions out loud and then the answers out loud, and we would all like try to guess, and then we'd all, yeah. So if you can find a good study group or something like that, if you work well with others, that's not boring. I actually feel like I learned a lot. And we also like all got to explain like why we felt the answer was like that answer for the reason, and like talking out loud. So it's kind of like how Brian was saying how he was writing out why the answer is that answer and then why that answer is actually not right, things like that, but just doing it out loud instead of writing it. So that was helpful for me. That's why I didn't study outside of practicum, because I probably wouldn't have been able to retain anything if I was doing it on my own. So yeah, that's my advice.
okay. Yeah, that's super helpful.
So I'm the same way. My attention span is super bad. Thanks to Instagram. But I would study 30 minutes tops at a time, and I did that for like 45 days. And I found that it worked helpful, or that it worked well. When I was done, when I was done at the end of my 30 minutes, like I was thankful because I didn't want to keep going. But at the same time, it was like a good amount of time that I felt like I had spent on it. So yeah, a little bit every day.
Yeah, going back to what I did, yeah, because I'm such a visual learner, like if I can write out what it is that I'm reading, what I'm going through, that was what's helpful for me. And by going through each question on the NCE exam, and you have like the 4 multiple choice answers, that kind of gives you like a cutoff of like, okay, if I can just complete this section, this topic, this answer, write it out, this answer, write it out, this 4 ways through, that gives you like a solid section. Like, okay, if I start this question, I know I can get through. So it kind of gives you like little stages to kind of help you get through. So because if you try to write out, different theorists and then go with their theories and interventions, you can kind of get lost in, where do you go, where do you continue? But by going through like each question, what I did is as long as I went through each question, I answered the question and I got through all of that. I mean, there's 200 questions, so I went through like 25 pages back and front. And so there's a lot that I kind of wrote out, so it can be a lot, but that's just how I took it all in.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. That's super helpful. Oh, go ahead.
That might be helpful for you, Stephanie. I did one of these workshops or info sessions in my first semester of the program, and they sent a link for a Quizlet. I don't know if you study better with like flashcards and a Quizlet, but I know I do. I do better with like physical flashcards, but I mean a Quizlet can do. I'm looking at it right now. There's 298 flashcards. So, I mean, if you want, I could put the link in the chat. I've had that. I've never looked at it yet, but
yeah, that would be amazing.
I think that is the same exact Quizlet is it for the CPCE?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's the same exact one that me and another classmate of mine used for like the first day of studying. So yeah, that one was really helpful. If you could link that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, let me know if that link works. It should. I just sent it.
Okay.
Yeah, I've looked at the Quizlet. The Quizlet, yeah, there's lots of really good information. Really helps with a good review, and also helps with like some brand new information sometimes. But yeah, if you look at some Quizlets, that'll help you out too.
Awesome. All right. Do we have anything else? Any other questions, concerns, anything at all?
It could also be about prac too. Like if you don't have
Yeah,
any
well
other.
well, yeah, I was just gonna go CPC and then start prac right now if there's no
Oh,
other
my bad, my
C
bad.
yeah. That's how I was gonna do it. So yeah, are there anything else for CPC before we? If you think of something later, of course you can ask. But it sounds like we should probably switch our gears a little bit now. Start throwing in some practicum questions. Um, the first question I have is that I have this general question: how many clients do you guys work with starting out in prac?
Okay, so I'm just gonna be straight up. If you're doing practicum in the summer, good luck. I would probably find a group. Um, so you need 40 direct hours, and a lot of people that I know in practicum right now aren't really on track to make it. So yeah, that's first and foremost. Starting off, I was supposed to have 2 clients the second week, and then they both no-showed me, and then ended up getting rescheduled with different counselors in my cohort. So I ended up not having any clients until like week 3 or 4. I was at 6. Now I am at 4. I think I'm at 4 now. And 2 of them I've been meeting with for the past 10-ish weeks, 9 or 10 weeks, and the other 2 are newer. So I'm just gonna be real. Um, it's out of your control how many clients you get. It's up to who is willing to show up. It's up to who is calling to schedule. So I would personally have a group. Like if you have your internship lined up, ask them if they have groups that you can sit in and help co-facilitate, and I would do that. Um, and I feel like Christian and Brian may agree with me on that because we're actually all in the same cohort group. Like we all have Dr. Chase as our supervisor. So, that's something that I would recommend straight away.
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
Clients.
How
Like, how
many
many clients do you
clients?
have?
Oh, how many do I have? Okay, I think I have. Let's see. Oh, I gotta think about this real quick. I have 4, um, currently. One of them has shown up consistently.
Mhm.
Everybody else is super up in the air. Hunter was exactly right. It's so much. Your hours are so much based upon luck and like, do your clients show up? Do you get scheduled clients? Do you know like whatever? Like, there's so many factors that go into you getting an hour, and most of them are out of your control.
Mhm.
So I'm one of those people that is desperately trying to get group hours right now. And so something that I would advise is whether you're in the summer, fall, next spring, like reach out to your internship, try to find a group, and whether you think you're going to need them or not, start getting group hours because you can get group for up to half of your required prac hours. And it's something that I wish I would have done. I certainly wouldn't be in this position now. Brian actually leads the group at the clinic, and I know it has been a consistent source of hours for him. So highly recommend group and highly recommend starting them early, whether you think you're going to need them or not. So.
Yeah, because we do have an anger management group. So I bet Brian can speak on that.
Yes. So I have 4 clients, and I guess in a way I'm kind of fortunate because like 3 clients I've had since like toward the beginning of the semester. I haven't had like clients cancel on me and no show. anymore, but I've since gained another client before spring break. Um, but I am also running the anger management group, which is a little strenuous only because I'm the only facilitator there. There was supposed to be a second person, but because of timing and everything, the other person couldn't show up, and it's a closed group, so there's no other clients, no other facilitators can join once the group starts. And so it's me and two other people. And it's not so bad, but it would really be nice to have another person to help, you know, share the wealth in that. Because it's a lot of psychoeducation, and a lot of this counseling stuff is a lot of imposter syndrome, and occasionally, like, am I good enough to have imposter syndrome? And so, you know, with what everyone else has uh, for doing the separate group hours with your internship. The good part about that is that you actually don't have to facilitate, that Hunter probably thought about. You get to just be an observer in those group hours that you needed. Um, did I see a chat with my name in it?
Yeah, Mike asked you a quick question.
How did I get to be a group facilitator? Oh, they sent out an email who's interested in being a group facilitator, and so I sent out an email, and I was sent back that you will be a facilitator for the group, which started the next day. And so I really only had like 27 minutes to go over the session notes before session started because just my schedule is just so busy. I left group supervision, so I had a half an hour just before group began. And so I just tailed it. I made notes in the first session. And so hopefully, if you're interested in doing group, let them know early on so you can get the manual so you can learn what the sessions are about because you're a part of a curriculum, a 12-session curriculum, and it's just really nice to know what has to be said, what you need to cover in each session. So if you're interested in it, I think when they send out what block hours you're interested in, I would suggest at that time saying, by the way, I'm also interested in being being part of the group facilitator, if that can factor into my hours as well. So recommend that route as well.
Awesome. All right, cool. Next I have how exactly does the supervision process work, or with supervision, how does that work?
Oh my god, it's the best thing ever. Oh my god. So we all have Dr. Chase, so it's kind of hard to speak for the other supervision groups for like Dr. Howard and oh my gosh, what's her name? What's the
Kaufman?
Is it Kaufman? Yes, Dr. Kaufman. So I can't speak for them, but at least for Dr. Chase, he has been such a huge support. So my individual supervision is literally 2 hours before group supervision. So I meet with him for an hour. In the beginning of the semester, you're mainly just talking about like what are you worried about meeting with clients, like how can we better prepare you to meeting with your first client. This is what you need to go over with your first session and your first client, and then so on and so forth. And then it's kind of structured like that for the next couple supervisions in terms of like, okay, this is how you're going to do the treatment plan, like how are you feeling about that and stuff and that sort. And then further into the semester, you're really just bringing in your caseload, and if you have questions about what to do with the client, that's the time you take like with your supervisor. Me and Dr. Chase has watched one full session of mine in individual supervision. So you can watch your videos with your supervisor. You also don't have to. But there's a tape critique form that you're supposed to fill out before every individual supervision. And you base it off of one client that you met with the week beforehand. You bring it into individual supervision. And then you basically just kind of talk about how your caseload is doing. Like I had to refer one of my clients out to a different agency because her case was too severe for this clinic, and we talked about how that conversation was going to go. So things like that. And he's just been a huge support just in general. Like he's asked me about like my comp exam and like given me advice on how to study and like self-care type things like burnout prevention, like things like that. So that's individual supervision. But group supervision, your first couple ones, like I said before, are pretty like relaxed. It's just kind of like talking about the process and whatever, like how the semester's gonna go. And then you have two presentations, at least for Dr. Chase's group. We have two presentations that we do. So we all take turns each week doing a presentation on one of our clients. So the first presentation, I went first for both of them because apparently that's just who I am. Uh, it's the phenomenological case study. So that one, I'm talking a lot, guys. I'm sorry. The first one is basically describing your client's concerns in their own words. You show a 10-minute clip of one of your sessions with them, and then you talk about it as a group, and then every one of your cohort members or your colleagues will give you like one positive feedback note and then one constructive critique note that you can do to be better with your client, and then Dr. Chase or whoever your supervisor is will give you their critiques as well. And then your second presentation is your clinical case presentation, which is through a specific lens of a theory. And then how Dr. Chase likes to do his is he likes everyone to guess what theory we're all basing our work on. So, of course, everyone guessed mine very quickly. Mine was narrative therapy. I've been doing narrative therapy with one of my clients who has pretty severe PTSD. So we talked about that. Again, you show another 10-minute clip and then do the whole thing over again. So that's kind of what group supervision looks like. And then that's an opportunity to get advice from your peers and like, help from them and like a group setting. And it's such a close-knit group. Like I feel like I've gotten so close with everybody in our group like this semester, and it's crazy to me. Like we're all super supportive of each other, and it's just so cool to see everyone be counselors and do their thing. So that's all I have. I talk a lot, so moving
No, you're
on.
good. You didn't talk too much. Don't worry. It's
Moving
actually very
on.
good. It was good. It was good.
Gotcha.
Christian, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say I don't think Brian and I need to say anything after that. But no, individual supervision is 1 hour, just you and your supervisor, and it's a time where you can basically share any concerns at all regarding the practicum experience, the CPCE, any of your clients, any questions, any concerns that you have. It's an hour of just one-on-one time with you and your supervisor, where they'll give you feedback, they'll give you advice, they'll tell you what you did well, um, they'll give you next steps. So it's really a very beneficial and very helpful time. Um, and then group supervision is an hour and a half, and you kind of get the same thing where your supervisor is once again giving feedback on a portion of one of your sessions. But what's different is you also get feedback from your peers. And that's super beneficial because it allows us to all learn together. They may find something that the supervisor didn't find. It gives lots of different perspectives, lots of different growth opportunities. Um, but it's all very, very well intended and designed for you to grow and succeed. Um, Overall, group and individual supervision are I don't even know what to say. They are very, very special and very, very helpful.
Awesome. Yeah, Brian.
What I'll say is take advantage of your supervision time because it's the only time you really get to be with the supervisor to look at your session to see like how you could have asked a question to get at a core aspect of what a client's experience is really like. And you can ask about interventions and you can ask about what can be helpful. Um, and even before practicum supervision, I'll say for those in pre-prac now or going to be in pre-prac, take advantage also of your observations in the clinic because that is the only time you get to observe a counseling session. In practicum, you don't get to do that anymore. You don't get to observe anybody else's until you're in like the group supervision and you do that as part of the other person's presentation. So I would say take as much advantage you can the rest of the semester or whenever you're in pre-prac to be at the clinic and watch everyone's um, sessions because you get to see how other people phrase the informed consent. How do they phrase limits of confidentiality? How do they ask certain questions across the DA? Because the one thing that I didn't learn during pre-prac is how do I ask certain questions that really gets out the entirety of the DA? Because in pre-prac and practicum, you know, as we're seeing clients, you know, still now I'm wondering like, how do I ask this one question? It still sounds so weird.
Are you able?
But yeah, they're like with like on your psychosocial sections, like ableness, body and mind. You're like, how do I ask someone like, oh yeah, is your body able? You know, you see, you don't know, or like in trauma, you don't want to ask like, so are you a perpetrator of abuse? That's just you just are trying to want to ask questions directly from the DA, but there you just need to hear what other people say. You need to practice, you know, how else it sounds to make it sound more authentic. And if you can hear how other people use these questions, and also how do people use interventions? Because that's something we don't learn in pre-prac, and that's something you don't really learn until you get to practicum, and everyone just says, "Okay, go. Here's your client. Show up on time, and we'll discuss things after the session." And you're like, "Wait a minute. This is like a human being that I have to like, you know, help out, and you're just trusting so much in me." Oh, thank you. It's nice to have faith in us and everything, but it'd be nice to learn a little bit more, see what other people do. So, yeah, I would say take advantage of any opportunity in pre-prac with observations and during supervision. It's weird having to watch yourself, but take advantage of what you look like and how it sounds out. You can ask certain questions at that time with your supervisor.
Awesome. Cool. So next you guys touched on this a little bit. Maybe we can dig a little bit deeper. What therapeutic interventions have you been using to help clients reach their goals? And maybe what theoretical orientations do you guys personally use in your work with clients?
All right. Everybody knows what I'm about to say. So, mainly, I'm gonna be so for real, a lot of us use CBT, just because that's what we learned in treatment. So, I personally so I have 4 clients. I'm trying to think of like what I used with each of them. My client I've met with the longest, I've been using mainly CBT, ACT, which is ACT, sorry. What else am I using with them? I don't know. I'm very integrative. So, and like I've done like a person-centered approach with them, like when they talk about gender dysphoria. So like things like that has been helpful. And that's another thing that I wanted to mention is Dr. Chase will have a literal laundry basket full of card decks and books and resources that you can use. That anybody, not even just Dr. Chase's group, anybody can go in there and grab and use. So highly, highly recommend using those because I have used the card decks before with some of my clients. But yeah, it's mainly CBT and ACT with one of my clients. Another client of mine, I have been using narrative therapy a lot. I've been doing a lot of narrative ACT CBT Um, I think I tried using. I've used a little tiny bit of DBT at one point, but not really. And then I've used some like creative art stuff a little bit, like just in terms of like outside stuff. But yeah, I talk a lot about values with my clients. I talk a lot about cognitive restructuring. I talk a lot about cognitive distortions. I talk about restoring a lot with my one client and like how we can view, because she's very stuck as and like she has a very significant history of trauma, and we've just really been working on like looking at her story as more of a survivor than a victim. So we've done that a lot. Another client of mine is a graphic design major, so I've been telling them to maybe draw some things out, drawing their worries, things like that. So yeah, just some mainly narrative, CBT, and act, and like a teensy tiny bit of like feminist and like DBT. So that's where I'm at right now.
Cool. Christian.
Yeah, so I like this question. I feel like because I feel like I get the privilege of using some interventions that are not always commonly used.
Mm-hmm.
So I do use a lot of CBT. With one of my clients, I am using DBT as well, which just through using it and learning more about DBT, I've really come to like it. And so I really enjoy doing that. I get to use MI, motivational interviewing, um, with one of my clients who is struggling with some addiction, some substance use stuff. Um, so that's pretty interesting. Going in, I knew little to zero about MI. Didn't know the stages of change. Wasn't super familiar with how it worked, but getting to use it has really allowed me to understand it better. And I will say this: it is a tough intervention to use. It is by no means an easy thing to work from, but it certainly has allowed me to grow in my understanding of it. And then lastly, um, I just recently got scheduled with an 11-year-old client. So I think I'm going to get to use some play therapy interventions. Um, and I am super excited about that. So we'll see how that goes. But
Yay.
I'm excited about that. So
Awesome. Great to hear. Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, with CBT, I've done a lot of mindfulness, the progressive muscle relaxation. It's good. I've used the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique. That one I found really useful. Um, and I've used, there's a lot of CBT, and I've integrated like the communication, interpersonal communication of DBT in my group therapy, which I think is helpful. But I also, you'll find some clients that ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy. I feel like we probably didn't get a whole lot introduced to that. But there's a lot that I've really found useful. Dr. Chase, he sent PDF, and that one is really nice, especially if your client comes in, they want to know more about their values, diffusing emotions from their thoughts. It's a whole thing. It's really kind of nice, and I'll actually see if I can download that PDF here as well. I don't know how to do that. Yeah, there really is just a lot of psychoeducation that you have to explain to your clients, um, why these interventions are pertinent and how they can be useful. But then you also can have to be prepared that your clients are like, yeah, that's not really me. And you're like, oh, okay, well then I'll have to think of something else then. You know, you kind of get stuck in this little situation like, okay, because you kind of have an idea of like, okay, I'll go into a counseling session and I'm going to cure this person. And you're like, oh, you don't want to do any of that. Okay, okay, let's see what I can do now. So, you know, you kind of get thrown into the situations, but you know, that's kind of part of this process. You're learning, and everyone that all the clients, they know that you're a student, but luckily they also believe so much that you're telling them because they come in knowing that you are this professional. They don't know anything about like the program. They don't know that you're coming in like, wow, this is very nerve-wracking. But so, you know, they also know that you're a student as well. So
Yeah, just be prepared for clients to be like, I don't know how to feel about that. I don't know if I want to do that. And that makes you grow as a counselor because you're like, you can go about it in two ways. You like if you have good rapport with that client, like one of my clients I have really good rapport with, and I'm very happy that I've been able to establish that. And like she'll be like, I don't know if I really want to do that. And I was like, okay, well what have you been doing? And she's just like, nothing. And I'm like, okay, so how about, I was like, I wonder how you feel about maybe just trying it 1 or 2 times in between now and next session and like, and just see how it feels. Like, I know right now it doesn't seem good and to you and maybe you won't like it, but you won't know if you don't try it. And they were like, yeah, maybe I'll try it. And then they try it and it ends up working for them. And they're like, oh, wow. I'm surprised. And I'm like, yeah, like, so it's just like one of those things where you can either go that route or you can just be like, okay, we'll find something else. And either way is fine. You know, I'm just been, like, one of the main techniques I was always scared of using is carefrontation or like things like that. But I think the further I've gotten into practicum, I feel like I use a lot of carefrontation now with my clients, especially my one client, like with all the trauma, because, you know, that's the intervention that I'm using with her is with narrative therapy, and CBT is a lot of cognitive restructuring and a lot of just like challenging those thoughts. So I feel like the techniques you're scared of using in mock sessions and stuff, you'd be surprised, like how much easier it is actually to use it with a client. Like if you have good rapport. Sorry, I just wanted to
No, it's good. It's all good. Yeah. Does anyone have anything else want to add on to that? I know. I thought I saw Christian's gears moving for a second.
No.
No. Okay. All right. Yeah. Awesome. The last thing I have for practicum is, what would you have liked to known about practicum before you started? Now that you're almost done.
Holy moly. It goes by so fast. It goes by so fast. And I am so sad. Like, you have no idea how sad I am. Just because my clients are fantastic and, like, I just don't know. Like, I just feel like I didn't have enough time with them. But in terms of what I wish I would have known, what is it that there's a lot I didn't know, so it's like more like of what did I know going in, and that's just the honest truth. I didn't feel like pre-prac really prepared me much for prac. I feel like there was a lot that we were all really grasping at straws and just like figuring out things. Like, I wish I would have known how to do documentation, like stuff like that. Like, I've done documentation so much for my job, but it's different for prac. Like, what note is this called? Like, what am I supposed to do for this? Oh, my client canceled, I am supposed to call them? I thought it was only for no-shows. No. So, like, things like that. Like, literally how to be a practicum student. Like, that's what I wish I would have known. But yeah, specifically though, I don't want to talk too much, but I wish I would have known, God, like, where do I start? You might need to come back to me because there's so much and my brain is like...
If you need a second, it's all right. We can go to Christian.
Yeah, there's just so much that I wish I would have known ahead of time.
Yeah, if you need a second, it's perfectly fine. We can go to Christian for a second if Christian's ready.
Yeah, trust me. I got stuff I wish I would have known.
Mm-hmm.
Number one is I wish I would have known how unreliable clients are. Just it's not everybody's story. It's not. There are people who are in prac right now who have had incredibly reliable clients. But they didn't pick those clients. Those clients were given to them. It's really not up to the prac student with how their experience goes for the most part. Um, and so I wish I would have been more prepared for the reliability of the clients that I've been given. And had I known that, I would have done a couple things differently, like getting group earlier. I may have joined Brian's anger management group when I could have. But it's really, really unpredictable. And I wish I would have known a little bit more about that. Yeah, that's the big one. I'm sure I have more, but that's the big one.
Okay. Brian, yeah, go ahead.
For me, I wish I had known a little bit more about putting some actual thought into the counseling process, what to expect on day one, what to expect on session 2, what to expect on session 3, because for so long we're just guided in mock sessions and classwork to learn how to present with the initial DA and how to write a treatment plan. That's usually sessions 1, 2, and 3. But I wish I had known more about what to do with session 4.
Right
Like,
on.
how do I start the session? What's next? How do I end the session? What are sessions 4 through 10 supposed to look like? There's just so much up in the air, and it's just really left up to your own devices, really, and your own interventions and how you use those. But what I found is that you're given a lot of grace, because there's times where I've practiced. We've done the mock sessions of doing the diagnostic assessment, and we've done other mock sessions, and I've been like, I don't know how I'm going to fill a whole hour. I don't know how I'm going to fill a whole hour and a half with the DA or something. I've had to go. I need like 2 sessions to fill the DA, because there's more follow-up questions. There's more questions you can lead into. And now as sessions are going on, I'm like, 50 minutes is not long enough. I could be here for like an hour plus with my clients, because there's lots of the clients come up with, and you can just keep going on and on. But the one thing that's really kind of nice about with Practicum is all the students start at the exact same time. And so you all have the same nerves, you all have the same questions, you all have everything happening at the same time. So you can rely upon each other. Your nerves are the exact same as the other person's, and you all get to share in that camaraderie there. And so you have so much support with everybody in that space, which is really kind of nice and comforting. And a little bit more about, okay, I can ask these questions because I know other people probably have these questions too. And so, yeah, it's kind of a nice little camaraderie you can share with people during that first week.
Okay.
Awesome.
I thought of what I was going to say. Okay.
All right, go for it.
I wish that I would have known that there are 3 different DAs. There are 3 different DAs, okay? There's your new client assessment, there's your returning client assessment, and then your child and adolescent assessment. I did not know that going in. So yeah, I have not had to do a returning client or a child or adolescent DA. I am surprised I haven't. I've only done new client or full DAs with people, so I just wish I would have known. So that is a big piece of advice I want to give you guys and like everyone else watching later who couldn't be here. If you can go into the clinic like filing cabinet room, like the printer room, and just look at those different DAs, and just like especially for the child and adolescent one, and highlighting what you want to ask while the parents are in the room versus what you're going to ask when the parents aren't in the room, because you can get a bunch of different answers whether the parents are in the room or not. But yeah, like a lot of the questions will be like, oh, family history of mental health. The kid isn't gonna know that if they're like 10 or like 9. Maybe they will, but most of the time they won't. So you want to have the parents in the room for that. Stuff like that. Like little things like that. I also wish I would have known, like I said, like you're supposed to call your clients ahead of time and like remind them of their appointments. Like they kept like saying like, hey, it'd probably be a good idea. Like, is everyone calling their clients? And you're just sitting there and they're like, we were supposed to call our clients? What do you mean? So, like, calling your clients ahead of time, just introducing yourself and being like, hey, like, just wanted to remind you of our first appointment, coming, 15 to 30 minutes early to fill out paperwork. It's a nice start to the building a rapport with your client. And then also, we didn't even know until, like, what, last week or 2 weeks ago that we're supposed to call our clients if they canceled. Like, we didn't know that. So like we're sitting there and we were getting like audits with like missing notes and we're like, why are these missing? And apparently it was because we're supposed to call our clients even if they cancel. So when they no show or cancel, we have to call our clients. Wish I would have known that.
And document.
And document it. And document it. Which I also would have because in the middle of the semester, the way you documented it changed. So like that was fun to figure out. So yeah, there's just a lot of things like documentation wise that I wish I would have known, like how like to attach things. If I do a diagram in the session with my client, how am I supposed to scan it into their chart? Because we can't use our personal phones. Like, how are we supposed to do that? And because I've had to do that before. And there's just a lot of little things that we didn't really get to learn until we were in practicum. And I found that kind of challenging because I was already, for me at least, I know maybe others agree with me, like for me personally, I just want to show up for my clients and just help them. I don't need to be worrying about all this other little crap about like, oh, how do I sign into this? How do I do this? How do I access my videos? And blah, 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 And like that in itself was stressful. Because I was just like wanting to be there for my clients and I had all of this crap that I had to figure out and learn. So like that I would really suggest in your free time those first couple weeks, look through as much as you can at everything. All of the assessments that you could potentially use with clients. Because I was gonna administer a borderline assessment with one of my clients and I was like, I didn't know this existed. Here we are, like doing that. And looking through titanium and how to carry forward your scheduled appointments because you have to do that after a while, like copy it to the next week and things like that, and just like looking at your client's charts and like knowing what you're expecting ahead of time, knowing which DA you have to use and all of the things. Like just look at everything you can, just absorb all that information before you can start meeting with clients, because I was doing that while I was meeting with clients and it was stressful. I wanted to cry. So yeah, that's my thing that I wish I would have known, but it's a lot of little things.
Awesome.
One thing I do want to add here, just so everyone knows, you won't see clients like the very first day. You won't see clients until you've had supervision, for not individual supervision,
your first
group
group.
Supervision.
Yeah, your first group.
And so you're not going to be just like, welcome to your practicum semester, now go. You'll have supervision first, so that way if you have last minute questions, doubts, concerns, what do I need to do, there's your supervisor that'll help you. You have your admin. Sophia is there right now. She's still learning, but she's willing to learn along with you, so she's super cool. So you're never alone in learning all this on your own. Okay.
Yeah, we're all in it together. Cue High School Musical.
Cool. Christian, do you have anything you wanted to add?
Just, you know what? Actually, yeah. It's not as scary as your mind tells you it is.
Yes.
I mean, when you guys hear like, you know more than you think you do. I was the first person to call people out on that. Like, no, I'm definitely an imposter. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And while that, like, somewhat may be true, where, like, I don't know everything that I'm doing, like, I figure it out. And, you know, it all works out just fine in the end. And, like, you guys have your first session, and it's like, okay, like, that wasn't that bad, and two, now I know that I can do this.
Mhm.
And as bad as your minds are telling you it is now, or will be telling you in the future, um, it's not as bad as you're making it out to be in your head.
Mhm.
All the situations that you've run in your mind, uh, it's not as bad. And I have a pretty nice prac horror story. But even that is like I laugh about it now, and it worked out just fine. So it
Is that
really
something you'd like to share?
not really.
Come on, Christian.
I'm
No,
not gonna
no,
I'm
not
not gonna
really.
pull you here,
We're
but
we're
just you're
keeping
on.
positive vibes here.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'm teasing.
But no, you guys are gonna kill it.
Yes,
Awesome.
that's something I was gonna mention too. Sorry, Brian. But I will tell you right now, I was hyperventilating outside of the door, like before my first session, like freaking out, like, oh my god, am I gonna be able to do this? Like, I don't feel prepared. Blah, blah, blah. And then I met with my client, and it was like, boom, game time. You know what I mean? And it was just the most surreal, like, I just feel so honored, like meeting with clients and just like being able to do this now. Like, it's just so awesome. And like, once you see the growth in your clients, oh my gosh, it's just the best feeling. It really is. So, like, yeah, I was nervous my first session. Like, literally was about to cry. Like, I was like, I don't think I can do this. And I have really bad anxiety, so that's why. But besides the point, you can do it. And the whole fact that you're being recorded, I forget I'm being recorded like half the time. And like,
That is the best thing that can happen to you, honestly.
yes, it really is. And like the first time, like, there was one session where I was like, I feel like I did crap. I feel like I did so bad. I was sitting in individual supervision, like, literally I've cried in front of Dr. Chase a couple times already just because I felt so bad about how I did. And he's like, well, let's watch the session. And the first time he said that to me, I freaked out. I was like, oh my god, we're about to watch an entire session with my supervisor. This is so scary. But I promise you guys, it's really not that bad. Like, at first, it's really, really worrisome, and you're like, oh my god, what is he gonna say? He's gonna completely, like, rip me apart. No. No. Like, your supervisors know that your students, that we're all learning. We're doing this for the first time. Like, yeah, and then we watched the session together, and it wasn't even that bad. It wasn't as, you make things up to be worse in your head than they actually are. And I think that's the beauty of being recorded and being able to watch your sessions back, because you're like, oh man, you come out of a session, you're like, I did terrible, and then you watch it and you're like, wait, I made that so much worse in my head than it actually was, and it was actually pretty fine, like, it was good. And yeah, so like after that first session, you'll be golden, and like, just watch the videos. If you feel like you did bad, that's the ones that you want to watch, because it's probably not as bad as you think it was. And like, now I feel like I'm in a position where I know I'm still improving, but I actually feel good about what I'm doing with my clients now. And that's something I never thought I would have said week 3 or 4 or 5. And like, we're almost done. And I'm like, wow, I feel like I did a great job with my clients. So just know that you'll learn, you'll get there, and and like everyone else said here, like, the clients know you're a student. So if I fumble over my words all the time in front of my clients, and they just laugh, because that makes you human, and it's great. Like, you know, like, I've dropped stuff in front of my clients before, and I've like almost knocked something over one time, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, and they just laugh, because we're human, you know, we're not robots. So it's almost like a rapport builder messing up, you know? So, yeah, that's my pep talk and my preaching speech, whatever.
Awesome. You guys have anything else to add to that, Brian or Christian?
Yeah, cut
No.
Brian off.
No.
Yeah, I'll say, like, yeah, your first client, that gets kind of nerve-wracking. I forgot my client's name before I walked into the waiting room. So I had to like turn back around and ask Tammy was our admin at the time, like, Tammy, what's my client's name? So, and to be truthful, I had to do that more than once. And I've also called my client the wrong name. I've said, yeah, take care, have a good night, Sean. And I don't have a client named Sean. None of my clients are named Sean. And so I'm grateful he didn't come back and say, like, do you know my name? So you're going to have like those moments that really kind of humble you in that way. But, also kind of allow for that space, to hang on to those nerves, because that's just kind of part of the process. You'll have those, and take solace in the fact that, you of what your experience is going to be like with your first clients. It's just kind of part of the whole program and process. So yeah.
Awesome. Great. So yeah, those are all the questions I had prepared in terms of practicum. I'm opening it up now, Mike or Holland. Do you guys have anything you'd like to ask? Any questions or concerns or anything in terms of practicum?
I didn't really expect to go into practicum as much, but that was really helpful. So thank you.
Of
Yeah, I
course.
agree. As someone who's about to start practicum this summer, definitely really appreciate everything from the CPC stuff through the practicum stuff. You guys did a really thorough job of explaining a lot, and yeah, super helpful, super helpful. Um, so yeah, if no one has anything else, I'll just throw it out there one more time. Panelists, if you have anything else you'd like to add about CPC exam or practicum, do you have anything else?
At the end of the day, it is what it is.
It is what it.
And you can do it. You
You
seriously
can
can do it. You can. Like, I know it's scary. Both the CPCE and Prac. I know it's scary. But you can do it. We've been in this program long enough, you'll be prepared even if you don't feel like it. Like, you'll remember stuff. Like, don't worry, you're not gonna blank out. And even if you do, that's okay. Use your purposeful silence or whatever that technique is called. So you know what I mean? So yeah, it's not as bad as you think it is, and it's a really rewarding experience. So just really lean into it and just make it the best you can.
Awesome. All right. Does anyone have anything else? Either panelists or students who aren't panelists? All right. Awesome. Well, I'll go ahead and stop the recording now.